Hello, my friend. I'm here to teach you how to play Frostpunk 2, and in this guide, I'm going to cover every single major gameplay system, and boy, there are so many of them. It's a really engaging and thrilling game, but it's dense, it's complex, there's a lot to break down. So let's jump straight into it. Right off the bat, I want to give you an overview of all of the major gameplay systems that are present on screen right now, but first, just a quick note on the basic controls. If you want to move around the map, it's WASD or the arrow keys. You can also click and drag. You can zoom in with the scroll wheel. You can zoom back out with it, of course. You can hold it down and move it so that you can rotate your camera how you want to. And this is the kind of game where you can right click out of many menus. So let's say I go into this district building menu. If I want to close it, I can just right click anywhere. It's super convenient. Now, you'll find some screens that don't have right clicking for them. So for example, this full takeover screen here, you'll need to hit X or you can just hit escape. It's all good. So those are the super basic controls. You now know how to maneuver around Frostpunk 2. Let's talk about all the gameplay systems. Starting from the top left, you have the date and you have the time control. So Frostpunk 2 takes place in real time, but you're going to be pausing a lot. And that's because there's so much going on and you're going to need to plan carefully. So you can pause by clicking the button or you can hit spacebar. Moving over to the right, you have information about your population and your workforce. So here you can find out, when your population is going to be growing. Here you can find out how much of your population is actually working, where it's coming from, that kind of thing. But if we move over to the right, now we can see our general resources. Think of them as your money and your building materials. Let's move on to the center of the screen. So this is really important. And here you're looking at your heat. So if you don't have heat in this game, you can't really do anything, right? It's the post-apocalyptic wasteland. The world has frozen over. You will need to have heat. So when you're hovering over this here, you can see exactly how much heat you have, how much heat you need, all that good stuff. And here are your heat resources. You've got your coal, you've got your oil as well. Now, if we keep going over to the right, here we have housing, food, materials, and goods. These are sort of the demands of your people that you'll need to keep in check. And as you can see right now in this save, it's not looking so good, is it? But we'll cover that more a little bit later. Now, to the right here, you also have some, I guess you can call them human resources if that's not too weird. This is referring to guards that you have that can patrol or police the city. This is referring to your explorers that can go beyond your city to find new areas. And here you have the weather radar, which is super important because as you can see, it's telling you when there's going to be a whiteout, which is a big storm, or when things will get colder or warmer. And that's super important because depending on the weather, depending on the temperature here, you will have different heat demands and potentially different demands from your people that you'll need to keep in check. Now then, let's move back to the center of the screen. So you have these black icons here and they're telling you about the cold, they're telling you about the squalor, they're telling you about the crime, disease, the hunger. So this is basically telling you what state your people are in and what's contributing to those states and how you can improve them or maybe not improve them if that's what you want. On the left here, you have your general objective. And on the right here, you have shortcuts to your outpost. So if I hover over New London here, that's the city we're in, but I can double click. And now this is going to take me to an outpost. We'll talk more about outposts and expansion later. Don't need to worry about that right now. You can left click on your outpost and you can go through this menu to not propose, but actually make resource transfers. You're trading with yourself, so no one's going to say no. You can adjust how much, resources you're sending in both directions, that kind of thing. And you can also transfer people. So right now you can see I have this many people in my main city, but if I want to put more in the outpost, I can go like that. Now, if you click this button here, it's going to zoom all the way out. You can also do that with the scroll wheel. And this is kind of your big overview. So here you're figuring out where you want to explore next. Like for example, let's see, we've got this area here. I'm going to click it. It's telling me that there might be, it's telling me that it's very dangerous, but that we might be able to find coal. And then if I want, I can launch the expedition, which will use up my explorers that you see at the top right over there. Now then, let's get back to the city here really quickly. And you can see also here, by the way, this is telling you that you're getting resources from one of the outposts you found in the overworld. So right now, we're extracting coal from this location here, which is super handy. Like I said before, as you explore the world, you'll find all sorts of goodies in there. Getting back to the city now, though, and looking at the bottom left of the UI, we have basically, I think the game calls it the zeitgeist. This is telling you where you're progressing in terms of your city's culture. So everything you build and everything you do will contribute to these meters. And once you max these meters out, you unlock new abilities on the tech tree, which can have positive and negative effects. But also, as you fill out these meters, different factions, which you see over here, will react to things differently and potentially have positive or negative effects. We'll get to factions in a little bit, don't worry. But moving on from this system, we now go over to our council. So this is where we would be proposing laws. And laws are items in the game or elements of the game where you pass the law and it gives you specific boosts or decreases. So for example, if we did chemical additives to our food, it's supported by these two factions, and it can make food production efficiency better, but it might increase disease a little bit. So you can propose that, you can then vote on it, or if you aren't confident that you can win the vote, you can try negotiating, which is another key element of the game. So here we have the New Londoner. Actually, you know what? Let's look at the Frostlanders. We have the Frostlanders here. They're open to negotiate. We can ask them to vote for or against the law that we're trying to pass. So we want to pass this law. So we're just going to try to negotiate with their demands here. And we'll come back to that in a little bit. So that's a key element of the game that you're going to be looking at all the time. But moving on now, we have the factions. So we have factions and communities, actually. You can see here when I hover over these guys, it says Frostlanders community. And then when I hover over these guys, it says Stalwarts factions. Factions are kind of big groups that organize and have specific desires and needs. And so do communities, but communities are kind of, think of them as less intense factions. So factions you'll need to keep happy. You'll need to basically make some agreements or deals with them. You can make promises to them. You can give them money. You can take money from them. You can promote them. You can condemn them. There's a lot of different things you can do with factions, but generally you want to keep them as much as possible in your good books. And if you don't keep them in your good books, you can see here, these guys have a little red icon on them. That means they're becoming a little bit more militaristic. You can see that they don't really support me all that much. And faction interplay is crucial to Frostpunk 2. There's just so much politicking going on, and you're always playing, what are you playing? Slingshot? That's not a, you're always playing like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. You're always trying to negotiate with all of these different factions because you're trying to keep everyone happy. And if you don't keep everyone happy, it can escalate to the point of civil war. So one thing that kind of helps you in your politicking is this globe here, or what is this? Orb, I guess. It's your tension orb. And as you do things in the game, if tension is rising, this thing will fill up. And it tells you why it's rising. And if tension rises too much, well, you know, things might break out. Civil war could break out, you know, if that pairs with faction breakdown. And you also have the trust meter down here that you're taking a look at. So this is telling you how much your kind of people and factions are trusting you. So politics is a huge element. If this was confusing because there's so many things about it, don't worry, we're going to talk about it in more detail. But let's move on to the next system. So we have the idea tree. This is your tech tree. But what's kind of unique about this tech tree is that you're not only researching tech in terms of like a building you can build, you're also researching potential laws. So you might find a law in here that you want to research. You close the tech tree after it's researched or after you've set it to research, and then you try to pass the law at your council. And you'll often have factions making specific demands about that kind of stuff. As we move on to the bottom right, you have your districts menu, and districts is how you basically build stuff in this game. So if I want to build houses, I don't build individual houses. It's not a city builder in that sense. I build districts, which take up different amounts of tiles. So if I want to build this housing district, I gotta click around like this. And once I confirm, it'll start building the housing district. Of course, you have more than just the housing districts. You have the food districts, you have the extraction districts. They all do different things, which we'll get to in a bit. And you also have the buildings menu over here. So buildings are individual buildings that you will place inside of districts. So for example, let's say I want to build a ventilation tower because I like what it's giving me on screen. So I select it and then I select the district I want to build it in. In this case, it's a housing district building. So districts is how you build like your zones, if you will. And then individual buildings are the things you place inside of districts so that you can get specific bonuses or specific abilities or mechanics. Now, moving on to the bottom right is Frostpunk 2's super important Frostbreak mechanic. So you see how the map lights up with all of these white hexagons? Well, this is all space that you need to break the frost on so that you can turn it into usable space. Frostbreaking always costs the same amount, and you always have to kind of frostbreak 8 squares at a time or 8 hexagons at a time. But frostbreaking is super important because you cannot expand if you do not frostbreak. So everything that you're seeing right now, all of this white stuff, I cannot get past it until I frostbreak it. If I want to build something here or down here, I need to frostbreak that first. All right, so let's start digging into these mechanics a little bit more, starting with heat. So as I mentioned before, you got your heat at the top of the screen. It's super important because the game does not happen without heat. Everyone's going to freeze over and perish. So you got your generator in the middle of the city here. If you click on it, you can turn it on and off. It's going to be off by default when you start the game. So if you're wondering like, why can't I do anything? You need to turn your generator on. You can even put it into overdrive mode, which will produce extra heat, but can cause risks and death eventually. So heat needs to be coming from something, or the generator needs to be fed with a heat source or a material, if you will. Or resource? Material is probably not the right word. Let's call it resource. That's probably the best word. So you got your coal up here. You've got your oil here. Initially, you're not going to be starting with oil. You're just going to be starting with coal, but you need to feed coal or oil into your generator so that it can produce heat for everybody. And the way that you do that is, well, you can hold Alt on your keyboard to bring up this wonderful overview that tells you where all of the resources are on the map. So we can see here that we have some coal here. We can see we have some coal here. I already built a district here to extract coal. So if you want to extract coal, you're going to need to build something to extract that coal with. And the thing you're going to need to build is your extraction district, because extraction districts are the things that take the elements out of the ground and send them over into your city. So in this case, the extraction district is what's going to pick up coal, and it's going to be what's going to pick up oil as well once you're refining oil. So make sure you remember that nothing in this game happens without heat, and there's an interesting heat mechanic as well when you're actually building. So I have these houses here, I have this housing district, and I have another district over here. Let's say I want to build some more houses. So you see how it's blue over here because it's kind of coming from these districts. If I place 3 of my tiles for my district that are touching the other district, this is going to be much better for heat costs and heat output. So you always kind of want to build things close together if you can help it. All right, let's talk about the districts themselves now. So housing districts are going to be providing shelter for your people, which you can see up here right now. My people, they don't have enough homes. If they don't have enough homes, oh, things are going to go bad. Then you've got food districts. Food districts are what you need to build in order to extract food from the ground, which you can see here with these little icons. Extraction districts, we briefly already talked about, but basically you need them for extracting resources from the ground. And not just your fuel resources, but also if you want to grab other resources, like let's say there's these abandoned ruins here, the resource is going to be prefabs, which is a building material, or if you want to extract just general materials from here, you need to cover that stuff with your extraction districts. Next up, we have industrial districts, which might be a little bit confusing at first. These guys, you don't need to build them on anything specific because with them, you're going to be generating building blocks, building materials, prefabs, or you can even have them generate goods, which is like luxury items for your people. So industrial districts, they can be built wherever you want. And then you have the logistics districts, which need to be, actually, I don't know if I unlocked that in this save yet. Oh, I did. Okay. They need to be built on these little kind of exploratory icons. This little, what is it, like a compass? So you start building it there, and once you have that built, it's going to supply you with Frostland teams. So this number up here that lets you zoom out of the map, wrong button, zoom out of the map and explore the rest of the world. Another thing you want to know about districts is that they can be expanded, and that's actually a super important mechanic. So we have this food district here, and you can fit a building inside of it. But if I click the expand button here, I can choose where I want to expand it. And if I do that, the district will become better at extracting the food. There'll be a bigger total output. However, keep in mind that if you expand your districts, you need to make sure that you're leaving enough room around so that you can keep building other stuff, because you don't want to end up in a situation where, like, let's say you're building this district and then you're building this district right beside it, and then you don't have enough room to expand either one of them. Now, the thing that's super useful about expansion, apart from just the output, is that you'll get that other building slot so you can fit more buildings into districts. But in some cases, specifically for housing districts, you won't have a building slot until you expand them. You can expand them twice, so you can have 2 building slots, but keep that in mind. District expansion is pretty important. Another thing you need to know about districts is that they can wear down. So you can see here, well, you can't actually see here because it's not worn down. But if it was worn down, you would have a red bar here basically saying like, hey, this district is worn down because of reasons XYZ. And then you'll get a little fix it icon, and you'll need to pay some money to fix that district, because if it gets too worn down, it'll stop working, it'll get destroyed. Now let's talk about overtime. Sometimes you're going to need your districts to have a much higher output than they currently do, even after they've been expanded. You can click here to do emergency shifts, and basically that's going to make your district way more efficient. It's going to have a way bigger output, but trust is going to fall slightly. And if you remember, trust is this meter down here that you want to maintain at a reasonable level so that you don't lose the game. And there's going to be the potential for workers to die on certain emergency shifts. And if workers die, then you're going to lose even more trust. So sometimes it's an absolutely necessary evil to maintain your production, but just keep in mind that you don't want to hammer emergency shifts on everything. And finally, I know we covered it a little bit, but just a reminder that if you go into your buildings menu here, you can select different buildings to build in your districts. So if we want to build, let's say, this blast coal mine that's going to make us better at mining coal, we select it and then we place it in the extraction district that we previously placed over the coal deposit. Just keep in mind that buildings always have positive and negatives. For example, this one, it wants 60 materials. It's going to give you way more coal, but it's also going to increase squalor. And the more squalor you end up having up here, the more problems you'll have in the game world. And when you're looking at this, you can also right click on it to see what it is. It's super handy on the UI, so you can see what squalor is. But basically, for the purposes of this tutorial, the more squalor you have, the worse off your city's going to be, the more it's going to be falling apart, and the more wear you're going to have on your districts, that kind of thing. All right, so let's talk about the different statuses up top a little bit. So you've got your cold. You can see here it's raising, or growing, I should say, because I'm lacking shelter. So, you know, people are going to freeze over if we don't provide shelter for them. We got the squalor, which we just talked about. So it's growing because I don't have enough material supply. So squalor is going to result in disease, worse population growth, worse off districts. Things are going to, you know, fall apart. We're also seeing crime growing because we have a goods scarcity. So we're not giving the goods that people want. They don't have the luxuries that they want in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. And just as a reminder, goods can be produced at industrial districts. So once you build an industrial district, you can tell it to produce goods just by clicking here. You can also find goods in the overworld. Now over here, we also have disease, which we don't have right now. That's fantastic. Fantastic? What did I just say? But you can build hospitals and other structures that will help you out with disease, of course. You can also build structures that will result in creating more disease. So there's always trade-offs for everything, but you want to make sure disease is under control because, if you've got disease spreading through your city, it's going to spread way quicker than you might think. And then finally, we have hunger here, which is currently absent. I'll explain why a little bit later, but you want to keep your people well fed because if you don't, you're not going to see your city survive, thrive, and grow. All right, so let's talk about the different resources and currencies that you have in this game. At the top, you have heat stamps. Think of this as the coins or the money of this world. I'm only producing 15 per week right now. You can see what's contributing to that as well here. We've got some rallies as well as the central district itself. And you're going to need to use this currency for a bunch of different things like building structures or frost breaking or researching new ideas on the tech tree. Beside it, you have the prefabs, and you can think of the prefabs as Legos or just building materials. You use this stuff in order to be able to build districts and things like that. Then you have your cores, which is a fancy resource for doing fancy buildings and fancy things. This is a pretty rare resource compared to all the other ones, so make sure you're super serious about when you want to use it. Of course, like I mentioned before, you've got your coal and you've got your oil as well. Those are your heating resources. And remember how before I said there's no hunger, even though we're saying minus 14 up here on our food? Well, we have a food surplus. We have a stockpile. So I can't actually scroll down to it because it disappears. But if you look down in this panel, it says stockpile, about 9,500 out of 50K. So when you're running a food surplus, like when you're generating more food than you need, you'll end up with a stockpile. So even though we're minus 14 right now, we still have a surplus because of the stockpile. And you can see this stockpile is going to expire in 96 weeks. So I have 96 weeks to get my food situation straight. Now, you don't want to wait until the last week to sort this out because you're going to be building things, you're going to be expanding your population, food demand is going to go up. So you're going to want to take care of this, but it's nice to know exactly when you're going to run out at present pace. And it's good to know because that way you can make lots of plans for the future. You can see here, we don't have any stockpiles for materials or for goods. So that's really bad. And of course, as a reminder, if you want to increase how big your stockpiles can be, you can go down here to construct different hubs, whether it's for food or goods or materials, fuel, heating as well. All right, so we talked about a million different concepts, but let's actually put that in practice. Let's see what the early game could look like. So I booted up a simple custom game here in Utopia Builder, and I'm going to show you all of these systems that we've talked about, and we're going to do them step by step. So first off, I'm going to pause the game. I'm going to hit space, click on the generator. It's already on. Great. Now, the first thing you want to do, let's take a look at how many resources we have. So we're running out of coal already. We have about 30 weeks worth. We're running out of food. We have about 68 weeks worth. So really, we're just now going to focus on the basics. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to hold down Alt, and we can see we got a lot of coal over here. We got a lot of food over here. So we're going to need to kind of expand in that direction. So right now, let's get set up with a coal district. So I'm going to hit the district button here. I'm going to hit the extraction district, and I'm going to build a coal district or extraction district over coal here. I'm going to hit OK. Actually, before I do that, though, just really quickly, I want to point something out. So you can see here, it says there's a 96K supply of coal. And over here, there's a 96K supply of coal as well as a deep coal vein. So if you build an extraction district over both of these, the 96K and the 96K will come together. But you're going to extract coal at the same rate as a single district. It doesn't make you extract coal faster if you build a district over both of these. It's just going to use the pool of both coals. And when it comes for the deep coal vein, the 100 million, which is an amazing number, for that you need to tech up through the skill tree and build an advanced building. But for now, let's construct an extraction district here. So we'll just build it like so. And we'll hit OK. And you know what? Let's start frost breaking right away so that we can set up another coal deposit district here or coal extraction district here. So remember we talked about frost breaking, everything that's white, and then after it we need to frost break so that we can expand. So I'm gonna frost break in this direction. Why not? Just like this. Yeah, we can include that as well. And so we're not going to worry about that right now. We're going to think about our food right now. So we're going to want to frost break towards the food as well, because you can see it's not in our buildable area. So let's go over to frost breaking. We'll do food. Yeah, we'll do another food, and then we'll kind of build it like that. When you're actually building out the districts, please put more thought into them in terms of how you want to shape them and how you're going to build around them. I'm just doing this quickly so you get a sense of how the action is. So as soon as we have that frost broken, we're gonna build a food district on there. But in the meantime, we need to get like a council going so that we can actually start passing laws. So I'm gonna look over to our buildings. I'm gonna look over to our central building. and it's the council hall. This is the thing that's going to let us politic in the game, pass laws, do all sorts of good stuff. And I'm just going to set it to build. So at this point, we don't really need to do anything. We can just hit play on the game, but it's a good idea to keep your eye out on the weather. Right now it's -20. It's not too cold, but in about 80 weeks, it's going to get colder. So we want to make sure that we have enough heat supply for then. And we can also check out the communities that we're dealing with. So we don't have any factions just yet, but they will kind of evolve into factions over time. But you can click on a community. It's going to tell you a little bit about it. So they really like technological progress, which is stuff that's down here and stuff that will be in the council once we have that built. So they're going to be upset if you're following different paths. These guys, they like tradition. These guys, they like reason. So let's fast forward right now. I'm putting it on triple speed so that we can have some stuff built. And great, we have some stuff built now. So let's take a look. Let's pause actually. Let's take a look at what we have over here. So we finished Frostbreaking and we can build more extraction districts right now. So let's do it like so. And we'll hit OK on that. This extraction district is still being built. That's okay. But we have built our council. So if we take a look at the generator here, actually, let me back out. If we click on the generator and then I thought you could look at the council. I must be crazy. No, you can't look at the council. My bad. You can take a look at it here. There's the council. That's where all the politicking happens. So now we can go into this menu here and we can start trying to pass different laws. There's a little bit of a cutscene. I'm just going to skip it real quick. But we can try to pass different laws. So this is what you really want to think about, what these communities and eventually factions are like, what they want. So these guys, you know, it's telling you a little bit about them. They want to pass mandatory schooling. They're focused on community. These guys, they want to pass family apprenticeship. They want to, these guys aren't focused on community. They are community. But yeah, they're all neutral with us right now. It's telling you the population of them. So you really want to kind of pay attention to what their needs and wants are and try to kind of manipulate them to do your bidding. So in terms of myself, I'm not really going to pay attention to that right now. I'm just going to pass something just to show you in general. So let's talk about, let's see. Let's do something to do with goods. So do we want mass-produced goods? Yeah, we do want mass-produced goods because they're going to give us a bigger production efficiency of goods. And remember, we want luxury goods to keep our people happy. This is supported by the Machinists faction. This other durable goods doesn't have any specific support by anyone. So let's pass mass-produced goods, or let's propose it rather. Now, fortunately, or maybe not so fortunately, people are divided, but there's no one that's inherently against it. People are divided because we've just started the game. So let's go to the negotiation table. Let's pick a faction. Let's say, let's pick the thinkers. They have the most, right? 41 delegates right now. So let's click on them and let's see what they want. So we're going to tell them, please vote for my law. And let's see what they actually want. So they want us to fund them, or they want us to grant their agenda, or they want us to pass a law, which is harvesting funerals. Now, this is a step towards reason, and this is where the UI could be a little bit better. I want to know what the other factions think about harvesting funerals as a law. So I'm going to, I backed out all the way. I'm going to go back to the laws here. So we're going to look at, where was funerals? It was here. So we're going to look at harvesting funerals. And it's not really super opposed by a lot of people by the looks of it, but there are some that are against it. So we'll go back to the negotiation table here. Let's go back to the law we wanted to pass. It was mass-produced goods. I'll propose it again. I'll go to negotiation. I'll go to the thinkers. I'll tell them, hey, if you vote for this law, I will pass this harvesting funerals law. So you can see our vote distribution just changed. We essentially guaranteed that we're going to pass mass-produced goods. Hell yeah, for cheap labor and mass-produced goods. So the vote takes place down here. We pass the law. Fantastic. Our goods production is going to be better. Although, we haven't built any districts for that just yet. I'm not overly worried about the good stuff. Let's focus on the food right now. Let's build a food district. So since we frost broke, or whatever it's called at this point, I'm going crazy. Since we frost broke or broke through the ice, we can build over here. Let's do it like so. Just as a reminder, this doesn't mean you're building 3 times faster food. It means that you are just pooling the total amount of food. So actually, you know what? You know what? Let's just do 2 together and we'll do it like that or like this. We'll hit yes on that. And we should build some housing as well. We probably should have built housing earlier, but I mean, it's fine. It's okay. It's just the start of the game. We haven't really done anything because we're paused. So then, you see here how we have all this blue stuff around the central district and around the food district. We want to start building off of the blue because it's going to give us a better heat output, less of a heat cost. But you can see here, it's kind of like striped, and that's because it's going to create squalor if we mix our housing district with the extraction district. And if you remember from before, squalor is bad. You don't want squalor. So let's think about this. How do we want to, let's back out of this view. How do we want to proceed with our housing? Maybe we can expand housing in this direction. I think that's probably pretty good. So I'll pick the housing district and you'll see here 1, 2, and 3. And now we can have that bonus, that heat bonus that we want. So we'll just keep expanding like that. And by the way, when you're hovering over the housing district, it's telling you how much shelter it's generating output, 20 shelter. So we'll keep building more. 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. And we'll do another housing district here. 1, 2, 3, and then we'll build it in this direction. And that was what, 60? So you'll notice we're minus 67, but that's okay. Once we build these, we're gonna start expanding those districts as well. So right now, you can see there's a little flashing icon here. And we made a promise to pass harvesting funeral, so we need to remember to pass that law the next time that we can have another council in 10 weeks, because that's the negotiation that we did with one of the factions, or one of the communities. They're not factions just yet. So let's fast forward time a little bit more and see what that looks like. So you can see stuff's getting built. Great. We have our first extraction district here. Remember, if we really need to, we can hit this button to go into emergency shifts, which can have, which will have way better output, but can lead to deaths and trust will fall. And here we can start expanding as well. We don't really need to expand right now. You can see we're plus on the coal, so it's all good, but you will definitely be expanding later on. So right now, let's take a look at how much resources we're generating. So we're generating 13 heat stamps a week. That's pretty good. We're not generating any free prefabs at all, which is an important building material. So what we can do is we can expand to these abandoned ruins over here so that we can collect the prefabs from them. But you don't have to do that. You can also just start building an industrial district right away if you want to, which is going to give us 10 prefabs a week. So we can do and then once that's built, we can start generating some prefabs. And you can also frost break, just keep frost breaking, because you're going to need, you're going to need these materials, you're going to need these other resources. So let's see, where do we want to, so interesting. If we build on top of here, the terrain is exposed to the wind, so it's going to incur a bigger heat cost. So let's build over here first, or frost break towards here first. We'll just do it like so. And then we'll eventually start getting those materials as well. So right now we don't have too much going on. It's just the start of the game, but as you can see, we put all of the things we learned into action. And actually, let me pause real quick. So these housing districts we've built here, let's just expand them right away, because we're still minus on housing, right? So we'll hit expand here, and we will do it like so. We'll hit this district up as well. We'll hit expand. What am I doing? I'm blanking here. I'm like looking past the screen. We'll hit expand. Oh, we can't expand here because we haven't frost broken. And see, we have this trap here now, because if we want to build more housing and stuff here, because we built this stuff close to our center, we have kind of like polluted these areas here. So this wasn't great placement. So that's something worth to keep in mind. So we want to expand the housing, but we don't have the room for it. So we need to Frostbreak. And up here, you can get +10 shelter from this crevasse here. So that'll be good. We'll want to build towards there. We'll want to expand towards there. That'll be really nice. So in order to keep expanding my housing districts, I need to expand my general playable area, which you do with Frostbreaking. So I think right now we're good though, for the most part. How are we doing on food? So our food production, we're generating 50, so we're still -54. So we're going to want to produce more food here. Let's expand towards more food. And then we'll build, what do you call it? We'll build a, a food district here as well. Actually, you know what? I don't want to put these all together. Let's just do the 2 like so. And then once that's Frostbroken, we will get our food going. Our generator, you can see it here. We can put it into overdrive if we need to, but we don't right now. And that's pretty much it. From here on out, you can start placing different districts. You can eventually start placing different buildings. You can start placing different resource hubs, but you basically now know how to start in Frostpunk 2. Here is where it gets way more complicated though. So let's focus on the bottom of the screen here. So like I mentioned before, you have your attention meter, you have your trust meter, and you have all these different factions. And let's click on the stalwarts. We're in good standing with them. Let's expand them. Because we're in good standing with them, they give us additional income. They give us the ability to create more guards, basically. And these are the kinds of laws that they seek to pass, or this is their manifest in terms of what kind of culture they want to have for the city. They're 30% of the city, which is great. But then we have these pilgrims, right? And these guys, 27% of the city, they want to pass different laws, sometimes that are at odds with the other ones, and they want to focus on different cultural aspects. So this is where you really have to be careful with your council, with which of these laws you're passing and which buildings you're building, because all of that stuff contributes to the zeitgeist over here. And then once you contribute too far in one direction, you might upset some of these factions. So you can see these pilgrims here, they have this little red icon on them. They have a little bit of fervor. So they've been upset enough that they're kind of starting to militarize. And the more they militarize, the more aggressive they'll be, the more they'll try to take down your rule, the more they might want to clash with your other factions, might eventually break out into civil war. If you want to deal with that, you can try to fund them. You can try to make promises to them, grant agendas, but that's going to move up this meter here, your relations meter. If you want to get rid of fervor, you're going to want to promote them, right? But if you promote them, that's going to make people join their faction. That's going to make them stronger. So do you really want to make them stronger if you don't like them? It's tough, right? Fortunately, if you go over to like the Frostlanders here, you can go over to their fervor controls and you can actually de-radicalize pilgrims with them. But first you need to be in good standings with these Frostlanders. And if you de-radicalize their pilgrims and you reduce their fervor, the relations with them are going to decrease. So there's no like 100% easy solution to everything. It's all about maintaining different balances by constantly politicking with different groups. So right now, right, if I say fund projects, I can just give them a bunch of money and you can see here relations went up a little bit and, you know, people joined them. Let's say I can make a promise as well. So let's say I will research the concept of dutiful youth. And once I research that, they'll be happy. That'll take a while. But I can also go over here and hit promote, like I said, and it got rid of the fervor. And now we're buds, right? Relations favorable. And now I can even deploy guides, which is their special ability, which helps with exploration. But if I'm not looking to build towards what the pilgrims want, like adaptability and equalness and tradition, then this stuff is going to start going down as I continue to pass different laws and maybe do things for other factions. So you can see how it gets complicated. And we helped this faction grow. So right now they're at 4,290 members. So maybe we want to offset that by promoting the stalwarts a little bit. So we'll grow them a little bit if this is the faction that we want to pay attention to. So you can see how complicated this is going to get as you keep passing new laws. Like, look at all these laws that you can pass here, 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 then another tab here, 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 another tab, another tab here, here, here. This rule stuff is more about like solidifying your own power, so you can pass laws that make you more of a dictator if you want. You can introduce like guided voting, which helps you gain more votes at the cost of relations. You can, bring in propaganda. You can bring in secret police that gives you other mechanics for dealing with factions. But everything that you do is going to make someone happy or piss someone else off. And the same goes with kind of the stuff in your tech tree here. So as we promised to the one faction, we're going to research the concept of dutiful youth, and they'll probably want that law to pass afterwards as well. So you can see here, this mechanic is going to give us an increase of active workers. It's going to decrease crime slightly. It's probably going to have some kind of downside in terms of like what part of the zeitgeist thing contributes to and what the other factions think about that. So you always constantly have to think about that stuff. Furthermore, once you max out any meter here in the zeitgeist, like let's say progress here, you can go to your tech tree, and I think progress was it this one? Yeah, progress was this one. So you can actually click on this and it will give you like a superpower that you can unlock. But once you do that, the special power that you get is going to come with so many drawbacks. It's going to double down on that path, and it's going to lock you out of certain items, and it's going to make other factions more upset by you kind of doubling down on that one progress or that one specific line of zeitgeist. So you constantly have to be thinking about how to balance all of that stuff. That's why you're going to be playing this game mostly paused. There's just so much to manage and think about and plan ahead. But politics are super crucial to Frostpunk 2. Okay, so finally, let's talk about expansion. So remember I mentioned before you need the district for expansion. So you need logistic districts to generate Frostland teams, which are those guys up here. Once you zoom all the way out and go to the overworld, you can see different areas of the map to explore. So there's these trees or whatever here. Let's click on that. Oh, it's safe. That's great. So we're not going to really lose people here by exploring. We're possibly going to find materials, cores, or Lego bricks. And if we hit launch expedition here, we'll be able to send 10 of these guys to go check that stuff out. So that's going to take a while. You can see the progress up here. It's also going to show up when they're returning on your weather forecast. So this is something I already explored before, this question mark. Let's click on it and let's see what it tells us. So abandoned research station, we can salvage it. It's going to give us some building materials, but it's going to cost us relations and the Frostland teams. We can just kind of ignore it, which will improve the relations with the stalwarts. We can come back later and deal with it later. You can also find places that you can settle, and that's something you unlock in the tech tree, but then like you click on the colony and or potential colony, I should say, and then you click the option to settle it. So in this case, we have this kind of story-based colony here, but you'll find other places that you can colonize when you play the game as well. And then you can turn it into a mini city, basically. And your colonies essentially work like your main cities. They're just much smaller. They don't have the crazy political aspects of it. They're much easier to maneuver in terms of politics, but you can build all the same stuff that you want on your colony, and you can actually trade between these colonies. So if you click on your colony here or your city, you can propose different trades. And because you're the all-powerful ruler, no one can deny these trades. You make the trades how you want them to. And trading is going to be crucial as you expand and just spread resources across your city, or your cities, I should say. Once you're in this view, by the way, you'll also find just resource deposits like this coal one here. So this abandoned mine output, it's sending us 250 coal. I have it set to go to the colony right now, but you can set it to go anywhere. The thing is, some of these things you'll find like deer and stuff like that, and you won't need to build a trail for it. But for other things, you'll need to build trails. So you'll need to connect your colony to your city. You'll need to connect your city to the resource deposit. So you can see these like black lines here. That's the trail that I built between these two. So to build that stuff, you just hit at the bottom right here, trail construction. It's going to tell you how much it's going to cost. And these three kind of little hooks or whatever you want to call them, this is what you want to connect to. So if I wanted to connect my city to, if this was a resource deposit that I needed a trail for, I would click here. You can see kind of like these black dots are how far the trail can go. Can it make it all the way here? Yes, it can. Great. And then you would hit the check mark. But sometimes, you know, you can't make it that far. So I don't know, if for whatever reason I wanted to go left with this thing, I have to build a stop point here. Then I need to keep building like this. This is blocked off because it hasn't been explored yet. But what it looks like in an explored area is like that, then like that, then like that. So keep in mind that trails get kind of expensive, not so much in the sense of like they cost a lot of resources, but kind of expensive in the sense of your exploration guys. You're always going to need some of them to build trails. So keep that in mind. And eventually you'll be able to build fancier trails called skyways. These are just your basic trails, but skyways are more efficient and can transport more goods. So folks, let's call it here. This has been a lot. I showed you all of the core gameplay systems. I showed you the auto-saving sometimes taking a long time. And I showed you basically every element of the game. Of course, we can always go deeper and deeper if we really need to. Like there's this random event here, and the choices that you make will have different impacts. But we don't want this video to be 10 hours long. Plus, you know, finding out things about the game is part of the fun as well. I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope you enjoy Frostpunk 2 as much as I did. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more Frostpunk content or other video game content, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.